In March of this year, we had a very important conference here in Cumbria to raise awareness on what the Localism Bill is all about. And not just the bill really, but also to share and understand the good practice, the best practice that's already going on here in Cumbria. On this DVD, there are highlights of the day, the presentations and the workshops. And my task here as chairman on that day is to take you through these. A greater emphasis on localism and locality working is coming to the fore now through the coalition government's thinking about big society, localism and particularly the Localism Bill. But localism and local working can mean different things to different people in different places, and that flexibility I think is quite important really in the way that we take this whole localism agenda forward. So in this conference, Cumbria County Council, the District Council, the National Health Service and a range of community and voluntary organisations thought it important to come together to host the conference to really raise our awareness and understand a bit more about it at this stage. The event attracted over 100 people from a whole range of backgrounds here in Cumbria, and they heard about localism from the perspective of national and strategic, as well as from what's going on in the communities themselves. These highlights from the event, together with the website at the end, will hopefully help you with locality working in your community. We first heard from Clarissa, who took us through the main themes of the bill, which is still kind of going through Parliament.
My role for the LGA currently is on the whole gambit of issues in the Localism Bill, and we're working very hard to try and influence ministers, MPs and importantly work with councils to try and feed up that frontline experience about how things should work. Actually, you need to make things easy, you need to make it accessible. Actually, if you have to fill out lots of forms and spend a lot of time doing bureaucratic work, that could actually be a disincentive. And we're working with the government to try and remove some of that procedural stuff and also implant the role of democratically elected local ward members in there, because they're kind of conspicuous by their absence and they have a huge role in making this work as the community champions. Big society, it's one of the big themes running through this bill, and I think that the bill provides, for the government, provides a kind of legislative vehicle to take forward its ideas on the big society. The power in the bill is simple, it's broad, it provides local authorities with a power of a natural person. So if you or I could do it, then a local authority should be able to do it. So I kind of split the bill into themes. There's a big theme around powers and governance in the bill. Community right to buy and community right to challenge. The right to buy is around assets and assets of community value, and it allows the community to be defined in regulations, but parish councils and local authorities certainly. To be able to put an expression of interest to the council saying, we think that this property or piece of land is of community value and we want to put it on a list. Once that piece of land or property then comes up for sale, then there will be a moratorium imposed on the sale of that to provide the community group or parish council or whoever it might be with the time to get his house in order, sort out funding to allow it to bid on the open market once that moratorium is ended. Similar to the one below, the community right to challenge, which is around allowing community groups, the voluntary and community sector, to put in an expression of interest to take over a local government service.
And now Nick will tell us more about the specific elements in the bill and particularly how it's changing and developing in its course through Parliament.
I'm just going to start off with what is a big society. This is the ethos change that we're actually looking at here. The rebalancing of relationships, local people taking action for themselves, focus on small neighbourhoods. I think that's a key element that we'll be looking at later on today. Bottom-up decision making. We've heard this term bandied around. Let's see if the fruits of all our labours are going to actually bring us into reality. And a shift from engagement into communities empowering themselves. So that's just setting the scene from the big society perspective. The Minister said it's got to be all light touch, no guidance. I said, you must be joking. I said, any greyness in what you're putting out will be exploited either positively or negatively. Just going to look at the issues of the Localism Bill, and there are quite a few. As Clarissa certainly pointed out, there's still quite a lot to play for in this respect. Neighbourhood planning, this is the big one. From a rural perspective, we have our parish councils, and they're kind of propelled now, from the point of view of the neighbourhood plan, into the sort of statutory framework. We've got these things called developer pre-application discussions. The figures currently being bandied around here are developments of 200. 200 plus, the developer has to talk to the community. Some district councils who look at 15 dwellings or a development of 15 or more, you have to consult with the communities. This is key, especially for rural areas and small development. The community infrastructure levy, I'm not going to go into too much detail on this. Currently, it's something that is not, the threshold's not been set in terms of how it comes back, and also in terms of what the council is required to or might want to give back to the rural community itself or the community itself. That's not been set at all, so there's still a lot to play for in that respect. Cross-subsidy, this is now a term that's actually been put in. So communities putting some development in, mix of affordable housing, market housing, you can actually use the sales of the market housing to subsidise further developments within that development, and this is quite a step change in terms of thinking, so lots of opportunities in that respect to be looked at. You can allocate the land, the pubs, the assets, but it's not for new purposes. So if you're in a position whereby you're saying, well actually in terms of development we'd like to earmark this field here, you can't do that in this bill at the moment. There are a lot of questions still waiting to be answered, especially in terms of the responsibilities for county and district councils in terms of what they are going to be required to do and the costs involved in that.
Through the workshops that followed, our attendees were given a chance really to talk amongst themselves about understanding a bit more about what localism is about, but also to share their own perspectives and their own experiences. And at the end of the workshops, we had summary reports really from them. They felt there's a need to build on best practice and work of existing pilots in Cumbria. That we should be flexible on how localism is taken forward, especially on the size of localities and how this relates to planning. That it's so important to develop bottom-up rather than top-down rigid prescriptions. That this work is releasing energy and potential to make a real difference here in Cumbria, and that these approaches are enabling and empowering us to be more successful at what we are doing already. That it's so important to work together, learn from each other and share best practice. The language should not be bureaucratic,